The morning sun hadn't yet risen, but the city was already waking up with quiet murmurs, cars humming to life, early joggers breathing clouds into the frosty air, and shopkeepers turning signs from closed to open. But just off a quiet sidewalk in the heart of the city, tucked into a shadowy corner beside a boarded-up coffee shop, lay a man and his dog wrapped in a worn patchwork of blankets. His name was Eli, and the dog curled against his chest was Maya, a fluffy, amber-coated retriever mix with eyes that still sparkled like they had 1,000 stories to tell. Maya wasn't just a pet. She was everything: his heartbeat, his reason, his family, his warmth through cold nights, his companion through long days. They'd lived on the streets together for almost 3 years, and in all that time, Eli had never once spent a night without her by his side. Their bond wasn't forged in comfort but in struggle, through hunger, fear, and moments when hope felt like a distant memory. But no matter how dark it got, Maya's presence was a light that never dimmed. Eli stirred as the cold bit through the last layer of his blankets. He opened his eyes slowly, squinting against the sharp winter air. He reached instinctively to his side. Maya was there, just like always. Her head was tucked under his chin, her warm breath fogging against the wool of his threadbare coat. Her tail twitched in her sleep, maybe chasing dreams where the two of them were running through wide fields instead of navigating alleyways. He smiled faintly and whispered, "Morning, sunshine." His voice cracked but tender. Maya's eyes blinked, open, and her ears perked up. She gave a small, sleepy yawn and nuzzled closer. In that moment, there were no sirens, no honking horns, no rush of cold feet stomping past them. Just two souls wrapped in quiet peace, a man who had lost almost everything, and a dog who had filled that empty space with more love than words could hold. As the city bustled around them, the world seemed to forget they were there. But they didn't mind. In each other, they had found something far more valuable than anyone passing by could see. When Eli had first found Maya, abandoned and shivering under a park bench, he had nothing in his pockets but a bag of peanuts and a frayed pair of gloves. Still, he'd crouched beside her, shared his meager meal, and let her crawl into his coat. She had trembled like a leaf in the wind, but as he whispered to her, stroked her ears, and let her feel the rhythm of his heart, she had slowly stopped shaking. From that moment on, they were no longer alone. The memory played in his mind, now as Maya licked his nose, bringing him back to the present. He chuckled softly, ruffling the fur on her neck. "You still remember that day, huh?" he said, scratching her under the collar that was worn but carefully patched. "You were just a scared little fluff ball. Look at you now, queen of the street." Maya gave a low, approving bark as if she understood every word, and perhaps she did. Over the years, Eli had spoken to her more than anyone else. She was the only one who really listened, the only one who never judged him for the dirt on his clothes, the holes in his shoes, or the past he couldn't escape. She only saw him, the man who fed her before feeding himself, who carried her when her paws were sore, who built a life out of scraps just so she could have a place to rest her head. That morning, Eli knew a storm was coming. He could feel it in his bones, and the air was biting sharper than usual. Rumors had spread among the homeless community. Tonight would be dangerously cold, and city shelters were opening up emergency spaces. As he sat up and stretched his aching limbs, he heard it again, the low growl of a city van rolling slowly down the road, stopping every block, speaking to every soul caught outside. A kind voice called out, "Sir, you doing okay?" Eli turned his head and saw a woman in a warm parka with the city's outreach badge clipped to her chest. She smiled, gently stepping closer, careful not to startle Maya. "We're offering rides to the shelter," she continued. "You and your pup could freeze out here tonight. It's going to be brutal. Come inside, there's food, warmth, and a bed." Eli's heart jumped for a second. A warm place, a bed, soup. It all sounded like paradise. But as soon as she said, "You and your pup," his smile faded just slightly. "Wait," he asked. "She can come with me? Maya?" The woman hesitated. That pause told him everything. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. They don't allow animals inside. I wish it were different. Eli nodded, lips pressed together. No, I get it. It's not your fault. You really should come in, she said, her eyes kind. We're just worried. People, they don't make it through nights like this sometimes. He looked down at Maya, who was gazing up at him, with absolute trust. Her nose nudged his knee. Her tail gave a soft thump against the blanket. She's not just a dog, he said, his voice steady. She's my girl. She's all I've got. The woman nodded slowly, her eyes now brimming. I understand, she whispered. I really do. She handed him a thermal blanket and a small bag of dog biscuits. For her, she said, crouching to smile at Maya. You two take care of each other. And just like that, the van rolled on. Eli exhaled into the quiet. It wasn't the first time he'd made this choice, and he never hesitated. To leave her behind would be to leave behind the only part of himself that still knew how to love. He wrapped the new blanket around Maya, who licked his hand and curled up against his chest once more. I'll always choose you, girl, he whispered, resting his cheek against her fur. Always. And as the city moved on, fast, noisy, distracted on that quiet street corner, something extraordinary was happening. In the face of frost and loneliness, two beings who had lost so much found warmth not from a heater or a home, but from each other. The kind of warmth that even the harshest winter couldn't take away. In her, he had a home. And in him, she had everything. The sky turned silver as the first flurries of snow danced to the ground, soft and silent. By mid-afternoon, a thin coat of white dusted the sidewalks like powdered sugar over a bitter world. The city, bracing for the worst of winter's arrival, hummed with urgency, people rushing to finish errands, grabbing hot drinks, bundling up their children, and hurrying indoors. Everywhere there were signs warning of dangerous temperatures and emergency closures. But for Eli and Maya, there was no door to shut against the cold, no heater to lean on, only each other. They had taken refuge beneath the skeletal frame of a deserted bus shelter. Wind sliced through the cracks like icy knives, and snowflakes settled onto the worn wool of Eli's coat. He tugged it tighter around Maya, using his own body as a barrier between her and the biting cold. She lay against him without complaint, trusting him completely, her eyes closing with slow blinks, as if trying to block out the sting of the storm and the weight of the world. Eli could feel her shiver beneath the layers. He cursed himself silently for not having done more, for not having one last sock to wrap around her paws, for not finding cardboard thicker than the soggy pieces that lined the ground beneath them. A man passed by, tall and wrapped in a fine coat, holding a steaming cup of coffee. He didn't look down, he didn't slow. His eyes didn't catch the image of a man holding a dog as though she were the most precious thing in the world. Just another shape on the sidewalk, just another invisible man. But Maya stirred. Her ears perked at the sound of laughter from a nearby family as a child threw snowballs, their coats bright against the gray. Eli smiled faintly as Maya wagged her tail at the scene, her innocence untouched by circumstance. That was always the miracle of her. No matter how hard things got, she never stopped noticing beauty. She'd still roll in patches of grass when they found them. She still chased falling leaves with puppy-like joy. And now, despite the cold nipping at her nose, she still lifted her head to watch a child's laughter dance on the air. She sees the good, Eli whispered to himself, running his fingers over her ears. Even when the world doesn't see us. A city volunteer came by around dusk, offering them a meal in a brown paper bag, lukewarm soup, 2 rolls, and a packet of peanut butter crackers. Eli thanked her with soft gratitude and immediately opened the rolls. He broke one in half and handed the larger piece to Maya, who sniffed it gently before taking it from his palm with the same care she always showed him. It wasn't a feast, but it was something. And when you shared what little you had, it became a kind of abundance. As the sun began to set behind a curtain of gray clouds, the air turned sharper, crueler. Maya tucked her nose under Eli's arm, curling tighter, her body trembling slightly. Eli adjusted the blanket over her again and took off his gloves, pressing his bare hands against her sides to share warmth. "Hey now," he murmured, kissing the top of her head. "None of that shaking. I've got you, remember? We're okay, just like always." He told her stories to distract her, tales of a farm they'd never seen, a little cabin by a lake, a backyard full of squirrels for her to chase. His voice quivered, not from the cold, but from the ache of longing. Not for luxury, not even for comfort, but for a place where Maya could run freely, with grass under her feet and sun on her fur. For a life where her loyalty would be rewarded, with more than scraps and struggle. "I bet you'd love a lake," he said softly. "You'd splash like crazy. I'd teach you how to swim, if you'd ever let me catch you." Maya whimpered quietly, as if answering. She was listening. She always did. Just then a soft rustle caught their attention. From the corner of his eye, Eli saw a young woman stop near the shelter. She was carrying a box, awkwardly wrapped in 2 scarves, and her cheeks were flushed red from the cold. "I saw you yesterday," she said gently, "outside the old cafe on Main." Eli nodded, unsure whether to speak. His instinct told him to brace for rejection, for someone to tell him to move along. But she crouched instead, setting the box on the bench beside him. Maya tilted her head. "Don't have much," the woman continued, "but I sew, and I knit, and I couldn't stop thinking about your dog." Eli blinked, watching as she opened the box. Inside were 2 handmade dog coats, one thick and lined with fleece, the other waterproof. A knitted paw print blanket and a small bag of dog treats lay nestled beside them. "I thought maybe she could use these," the woman said, her voice catching. "She looked so cold yesterday, and I've never seen a dog look at someone the way she looks at you." Eli was speechless. His throat tightened, eyes burning behind lashes dusted with snow. "She's my heart," he whispered finally. "I can see that," the woman said, smiling as she looked at Maya. "She's beautiful, and she's lucky." "No," Eli said, his voice thick. "I'm the lucky one." The woman stood and placed the box beside him. "I hope it helps a little." Before Eli could respond, she was walking away, vanishing into the snowy street. For a moment, the world seemed still. He reached into the box, pulling out the thicker coat. He wrapped it around Maya gently, adjusting the Velcro with careful hands. She looked up at him with those same wise eyes, eyes that had seen pain, yes, but also joy. She licked his cheek, and he laughed softly. "You're a fancy lady now," he said, brushing her fur down. "Look at you." Night fell like a heavy curtain, but with Maya nestled against him in her new coat and the soft blanket pulled around them both, the cold didn't feel quite as brutal. The street light above flickered to life, casting a faint golden glow over them. And for a few quiet moments it almost felt like a home, not made of walls or roofs, but of love, shared warmth, and unexpected kindness. They didn't have a house, but they had heart. And sometimes that's enough to survive a storm. The next morning came not with a sunrise, but with a dull gray haze that smothered the sky. A layer of frost coated the world like glass, brittle and unforgiving. Eli awoke to the sound of passing cars crunching over frozen slush, his back sore, from the concrete beneath the thin layers of blankets. Maya was curled into him, wrapped in the coat the young woman had given them, her breathing soft and rhythmic, her nose nestled beneath Eli's chin. Her presence was the only warmth that lingered. Eli shifted carefully, not wanting to wake her. He sat up and stretched his arms, his joints stiff and slow to move. Hunger gnawed at his stomach again, sharper now, but he pushed it aside. The first priority was always Maya. She needed food, she needed water, and she needed a safe place where her paws wouldn't bleed from ice-bitten sidewalks. He brushed snowflakes from her back and murmured, "All right, baby girl, let's go see if this city still has a little kindness left." They made their way through quiet streets, past locked storefronts and shuttered doors. Maya trotted beside him in her new coat, tail wagging faintly with every step, unaware of the cold's hostility. That was her gift, hope, even in barren places. They passed other homeless folks gathered near heating vents and steam grates, some clutching thin coats, others wrapped in trash bags. A few gave nods of recognition. Some offered smiles, none asked for anything. There was an unspoken understanding among those who lived in society's shadow. Take care of your own and never judge a story you haven't lived. Eventually, Eli reached the downtown shelter, St. Matthew's Community Haven. It was a large, stone building with double doors and a paper sign taped to the glass. Cold emergency, no one turned away. He read it twice before approaching, hope flickering inside him like a fragile candle. Inside, the warmth hit him like a wave, melting the chill that clung to his clothes. A line of people waited at a check-in table where a tired-looking staffer handed out sleeping mats and sandwiches. A large room beyond was filled with cots, blankets, and steam rising from styrofoam cups of soup. Eli could already see Maya's eyes widen, smelling the food, hearing the hum of people not bracing against the wind. He stepped forward, gently tugging Maya's leash. "Sir," the staffer said kindly, "you here for shelter?" "Yes," Eli said. "Just me and my dog." The woman's smile faltered. "Oh," she said slowly, glancing down. "I'm so sorry. Pets aren't allowed inside. We have a policy." Eli felt the words like a punch to the chest. "She's not just a pet," he said, trying to steady his voice. "She's my family." "I understand," the woman said, her tone soft but firm. "And I truly am sorry. But we have people with allergies, fears, and safety concerns. It's for everyone's protection. You can come in, but she'll have to wait outside." Eli looked down at Maya. Her ears twitched and she tilted her head as if sensing his distress. The very idea of leaving her outside alone in this bitter cold was unthinkable. "She won't make it out there," Eli whispered. "She's all I've got." The woman sighed, clearly empathetic, but bound by rules. "There's a warming station under the freeway bridge," she offered. "Some folks with pets go there. They've got tents and burn barrels. It's not much, but it's something." Eli nodded slowly. His eyes burned, not from wind or snow, but from the familiar sting of rejection. Only this time it wasn't just about him. It was about the one being he loved more than himself. He stepped back, tightening his grip on Maya's leash. "Thank you," he said quietly, "but I'll stay with her." The woman hesitated, then reached beneath the desk and handed him a thermos. "At least take this," she said. "It's coffee. Warm, I promise." Eli accepted it, murmured his thanks, and turned away. Outside, the wind hadn't eased. It howled through alleyways like a bitter ghost, lifting snowflakes into small whirlwinds that danced cruelly at his feet. But as soon as the cold touched him, Maya pressed close, her body against his legs, her gaze steady. "We're okay," he told her, kneeling down. "We've got this." They walked toward the freeway, the shadows of the underpass growing taller as the day wore on. A small camp had been set up there, tents, tarps, old shopping carts arranged like tiny fortresses against the elements. Smoke drifted from a burn barrel where a few people stood warming their hands, their clothes soot-stained and eyes wary. Eli was greeted with nods and cautious glances. No one asked his story. No one asked his name. He was simply another soul, looking for warmth, and Maya, another heartbeat carried through the storm. A man offered space beneath a frayed tarp. A woman handed Eli half a sandwich and a bottle of water for Maya. No judgment, no rules, just humanity. Later that night, Eli wrapped Maya in the new blanket, curling his body around hers inside the threadbare tent. The burn barrel crackled nearby, and for a moment, the flickering light cast shadows on the tarp like a dance of fire spirits. The wind outside rattled the plastic, but inside, they were together. Safe. Side by side. He sipped from the thermos of coffee, now lukewarm but still comforting, and whispered to Maya, "They wouldn't let us in, but I wouldn't let you go. Never, baby. Never." Maya licked his hand, curling into him tighter, her heartbeat thumping softly against his chest. Eli closed his eyes, and though his bones ached and the world outside remained cold and cruel, he felt something solid within him. A choice had been made, and even though it meant discomfort, maybe even danger, he had chosen love. He had chosen loyalty. He had chosen her, and in doing so, he had chosen to remain human in a world that too often forgot what that meant. The morning came without warning, just a dull light leaking through the seams of the tent like a hesitant apology. Eli opened his eyes to the sound of distant traffic and the faint smell of smoke from the burn barrel that had burned low during the night. His body ached in places that had long since stopped complaining. Hunger sat like a ghost in his belly, always present, but quieter now. Something he had learned to live with, like the cold or rejection. But next to him, Maya stirred, stretching out her legs and yawning with a quiet whimper, her nose nudging his chin like she always did to say, "It's time to start again." He smiled and stroked her ears gently, the only luxury they had between them. That touch, that bond, it was their wealth. Their love was not forged in comfort, but in survival, in sacrifice, and in loyalty that needed no words. Eli sat up slowly, pulling the tattered blanket tighter around Maya's shoulders as the wind snuck in through the tarp seams. Another cold day waited beyond the thin barrier. But Maya didn't seem to mind. She never did. As long as they were together, she carried on. By mid-morning, Eli ventured out with Maya beside him, her tail wagging gently, even as the frost clung to her whiskers. They walked toward the nearby gas station convenience store, not to buy anything, of course, but sometimes Eli would sweep the lot or help stack crates for a small sandwich or a cup of dog food. Maya knew the way by heart. She'd always sit patiently outside while Eli tried to earn them a scrap of humanity. She never barked, never wandered, just waited with those soulful eyes that could melt stone if anyone ever truly looked. Today, something was different. As Eli approached the store, he noticed a woman leaning against her car sipping coffee. She was bundled in a designer coat, the kind Eli wouldn't touch even in a donation bin, fearing it didn't belong to his world. Her eyes flicked from her phone to Maya, then to Eli. She didn't sneer. She didn't turn away. Instead, she walked toward them. "Is she yours?" she asked, her voice hesitant but kind. "Yes, ma'am," Eli replied, shielding Maya slightly behind him. "She's beautiful," the woman whispered, kneeling. "What's her name?" "Maya." The woman extended a gloved hand, and Maya, with her usual grace, nuzzled it gently. "She's so gentle," the woman murmured. Are you both okay?" Eli offered a small smile, one that tried to hide the truth but never quite could. "We're getting by," he said simply. "One day at a time." The woman stood slowly, her eyes lingering on Maya, then turning back to Eli. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice catching slightly. I work for a paper, the Tribune. I was doing a piece on rising homelessness in the city, but I think..." She paused, eyes glistening. "I think there's something here people need to see. Would you let me talk to you? Maybe share your story?" Eli hesitated. He wasn't used to being seen. The world often looked through him, not at him. And yet, the idea that someone might hear about Maya, about their bond, sparked something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "As long as it's about her," he said. "She's the reason I'm still here." And so for the next half hour, Eli told the woman, her name was Rachel, everything. About losing his job after the plant closed, about the eviction, about the shelters with no room for dogs, about the people who passed by without a second glance, and about the handful of angels who gave them sandwiches, coats, and smiles when they needed them most. But mostly, he talked about Maya, how she had been a stray pup hiding beneath a dumpster, when he found her shivering and starving, how she had clung to him ever since, how her loyalty had become his purpose. Rachel scribbled in her notepad, tears forming more than once. She took pictures of Maya sitting beside Eli, her head resting gently on his leg. When she finally closed her notebook, she said, "I promise you, I'll tell it right." That night, Eli and Maya returned to the camp, unsure of what would come of it. It wasn't the first time someone had promised something, but still Maya seemed lighter, happier. She snuggled into him tighter that night, sighing deeply as if she knew the world had, if only for a moment, turned its gaze toward them. The next morning, everything changed. It started with a tap on the tent's tarp. Light, polite, uncertain. Eli stirred, unsure if it was real. Then another knock and a voice. "Sir? Are you Eli?" He unzipped the tent flap cautiously to find Rachel standing outside, not alone this time. With her were two photographers, a man with a camera and a woman carrying a large thermos and a bag of dog treats. "You made the front page," Rachel said, smiling. "I thought you deserved to see it." She handed him a newspaper, and there, in full color, was a photo of Eli and Maya huddled together beneath the bridge. The headline read, "Man's best friend and the man who wouldn't leave her behind." Eli stared at it for a long time, stunned. Then she handed him something else, a letter from a local veterinary clinic offering to care for Maya, free of charge, and another, a hotel voucher from a donor who wanted to give Eli and Maya a warm bed for a few nights. Then more. A woman nearby had space on her farm and wanted to meet them. Donations had started coming in online. Messages of support. Offers of help. People had seen them, and this time they cared. Maya, sensing the excitement, barked joyfully and jumped into Eli's arms, tail wagging wildly as he held her close. "You did this," Eli whispered into her fur, overwhelmed. "You saved us." Rachel wiped a tear from her eye. "No," she said softly. "You saved each other. The world just needed a reminder of what real love looks like." That night, for the first time in months, Eli and Maya slept inside, on a real bed wrapped in clean blankets. The room was small and humble, but to them, it was heaven. Maya curled beside him, belly full, eyes glowing with peace. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Eli let himself dream. The sunrise the next morning came not through the cracked seams of a tent, but through clean glass, golden and gentle, casting soft streaks of light across the modest room where Eli and Maya slept. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Eli had woken without the ache of the cold in his bones. Instead, he woke to warmth, the kind that wasn't just physical but emotional too. A warmth born from being seen, from knowing that maybe, just maybe, the world hadn't forgotten about him and Maya after all. He sat up slowly, unsure for a moment if it was all just a dream. But there she was, Maya, curled up at the foot of the bed, her head resting on her front paws, eyes blinking open as if to say, "We made it." She lifted her head and let out a small, contented sigh, then hopped onto the mattress beside him, laying her head on his chest. Eli chuckled softly, running his fingers through her fur. It was softer now, cleaner, after the gentle bath Rachel had arranged for her at the vet clinic the day before. They'd spent the night in a warm motel room thanks to donations that poured in after Rachel's article. A quiet place with hot running water, a working heater, and a small TV that Eli barely touched. It wasn't the screen he wanted to look at. It was Maya, finally sleeping without shivering, dreaming peacefully instead of twitching from stress or cold. That was all he needed. That was everything. By mid-morning, Rachel returned. She brought more than just news. She brought options. Her eyes sparkled with an energy Eli hadn't seen before. She sat with them in the small motel lobby, laying out flyers, handwritten notes, and printed emails from strangers who had read their story. Some offered warm meals, others offered housing, a few offered work. And one note came from a woman named Nora, who lived just outside the city on a quiet piece of land. She had read the article, seen the photos of Maya and Eli, and said, "I don't know what I can give, but I have space. I have room for two hearts that need healing." She's a widow, Rachel explained. Has a small cottage on her property that she usually rents out. She said you and Maya could stay there, rent-free for as long as you need. She just wants good company. She said Maya reminded her of a dog she had once. She thinks you two might be exactly what that quiet house needs. Eli looked at the paper in his hands. Nora's neat handwriting like something from another world, one he never thought he'd touch again. It felt surreal. Too generous. Too kind. Why would she do that for us? He asked, his voice catching. Rachel smiled. Because your story reminded her what loyalty looks like. And maybe she just wants to be part of it. They packed that afternoon. There wasn't much. Just the clothes Eli had been given, a few donated blankets, a bag of food for Maya, and most importantly, the worn collar she had worn since the day he found her. Before they left, Eli knelt in front of her and clipped, on a new leash, one made of leather with her name etched into it. A gift from a retired police officer who read their story and said, "Every good dog deserves something special." The ride to Nora's was quiet, but not the empty kind of quiet Eli had grown used to. It was peaceful, lined with hope. Maya sat in the back seat, head out the window, ears dancing in the wind. She looked like she belonged in the front seat of every truck in the world, like she had always been meant for open fields and warm homes. When they arrived, Nora was waiting on the porch with a gentle smile and a cane resting against the wall. Her silver hair shimmered in the sun. Maya approached her first, of course. Eli held the leash lightly, letting Maya lead the way. "Well, aren't you just beautiful?" Nora whispered, kneeling slowly to greet her. Maya responded with a lick to her cheek. "She's usually shy with strangers," Eli said, amazed. "Not with old souls," Nora replied, scratching Maya's ears. "She can tell I've known a few things." The cottage was small, but it was perfect. A little wooden structure with flower beds that needed tending and windows that opened out to green fields. Inside, there was a worn couch, a working stove, a soft bed, and most importantly, a fireplace. Eli lit it that evening for the first time, watching as the flames danced and crackled, their warmth licking at the cold that had built up inside him over the years. He and Maya sat there, side by side, wrapped in a blanket on the floor. She rested her head on his lap, eyes half closed, her chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. He didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. Only gratitude, swelling in his chest like a tide. In the days that followed, Eli started helping Nora around the property, clearing branches, painting fences, running errands in town. It wasn't much, but it was honest. It made him feel human again. People in the village began to recognize him, not as that homeless guy with the dog, but as Eli, the man who never let go of love, even when the world tried to take everything else. Kids would run up to pet Maya. Store owners would smile when he came in for groceries. The local vet even offered to train him as an assistant, seeing his gentle way with animals. Slowly, the pieces of a life began to reassemble. Not the old life, but a new one. One built on kindness, resilience, and the unshakable bond between a man and his dog. And every night before they went to sleep, Eli would whisper the same words into Maya's ear. "We're home now, baby girl. We're home." She would lick his hand in response, curl into his side, and close her eyes with a soft sigh of contentment. For all they had lost, they had found something unbreakable. Each other. And for them, that was more than enough.